Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of Just Jossin. I'm one of your hosts, Sabrina Hannon.
And I'm the other half, Jasmine Heron. This week we are back in LA, the city of angels, with our darling Angel, for season 1, episode 5, Room with a View.
Yes, spelled RM with a VW. Or
Yeah.
VU, not VW. That's a Volkswagen.
RM space W slash A space VU.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And hopefully this week the audio is improved on my side at least, because I have this new handy dandy mic, and by new I mean I bought it forever ago and never set it up. But we'll see when I go to edit this if I'm just like, this is garbage.
Well, I'm still using just my laptop speaker, and I keep telling myself I need to get a microphone, but I need to do research before getting a microphone, and then I'm like, well, if I need to do the research, like, that's a whole thing. That's energy. I don't know if I have the time to spend.
And then, it's been, I don't know, how long have we been doing this? Like,
almost a year now?
Yeah, like at least 6 months. Yeah, because this is probably close to episode 40 at this point.
Yeah, you've been, whipping me along since the beginning of the pandemics.
Yeah, this is just us cranking them out.
Yeah.
But I didn't bother looking up any fun facts for this just because there haven't been any for the others, and I was lazy today.
I've got a couple from IMDb. One of them was there was a mistake in one of the scenes where you can see Angel's reflection.
Ooh.
And then this is the first time actually that Cordelia's group of girls back in Sunnydale are referred to in the show as Cordettes. This was something that they were known in the scripts by the writers, by the cast, like, okay, we're doing the Cordette scene, but it was never something that was said in the show until now.
And of course it was Angel that says it. But yeah, so this episode starts off, and I could be wrong. The building that they're in now, like the outer part of this building, is different of Angel Investigations. Is different than the one from the first episode, right? Like they changed how it looks on the outside.
I don't know. Maybe?
I feel like they did, but maybe I'm just thinking of like a different building. But we're starting out in Angel Investigations, and Cordelia is rehashing a audition she did about garbage bags. And it's not the best audition in the world. I always think it's funny when actors have to play bad actors.
Mm-hmm.
It's always one of those like fun meta type moments.
So I feel like the first part, when you just hear her voice and she's like, I'm sick of these garbage bags, it's a very Cordelia complaining about garbage bags, like complaint. But then when you like flash into the actual image of her and she awkwardly drops the garbage bag, that was a little forced.
And a little like, I hate my life, poof.
But she does make a very important like commentary on the Hollywood world, where she says that the girl who got the part was a blonde who walked in wearing a cat suit for a housewife position. And, there's this idea that it doesn't really matter what role you are auditioning for, they're gonna pick the sexy one.
Unless they are specifically looking for someone who is not attractive. Like, those parts. But then they just like, quote unquote, ugly up someone like Sandra Bullock. or something like that. But, you know.
There were a few characters who played like the landlords in this episode that I was like, you did really well making that person seem super creepy.
Yeah, super creepy. But the conversation, like Doyle's just like, okay, and like Cordelia's complaining about her apartment, and he says if she ever really needs to get away from the apartment, he can always, give him a call and stay with him.
I was so grossed out by that. That was no, Doyle, no. And like at first I thought he was offering to be helpful. Like if your apartment's really bad, then and then he's like, give me a call. Instead of being like, let me come help you out. Like I can bring over some lamps. Like
although it's infested with cockroaches, there's not much Doyle can do.
No.
But yeah, like, because there is a non-creepy way for you to tell your friend, like, this isn't a good living situation. Why don't you stay with me?
Mm-hmm.
How Doyle did it is not that way.
Yep. And Cordelia, shuts him down. She's like, stranger things have happened. No, actually they haven't. That's not gonna happen. Like you and me not gonna happen. Except, she gets home. Well, so first of all, the phone is ringing, and he's like, phone? You can answer it? And Angel also pointedly says, I was wondering. And then we find out it's not even, she lets the machine pick it up, or the machine picks it up for her. And it's not even a business call. She's got her friends from high school, from Sunnydale, calling her.
Yep. And she pointedly does not answer it. Like, she lets the friend leave a message. I think Aurora is the person's name. Aura.
She's actually, do you remember the body that falls out of, in like the first episode of Sunnydale? Welcome to the Hellmouth? That's Aura. Like
she's not the body. Okay.
No,
I was like, that was a man, and he did.
The locker. Darla's kill. Darla's kill from the beginning fell out of Aura's locker, and so they, canceled classes because of the dead body.
Which makes sense. Yes, parents would be very upset if you let your child continue, or if you let their child continue to go about the school day with a dead body lurking around, and a murdered one at that. So Cordelia says basically she's not taking those calls until she's a little better off. And then she leaves to go home, and Doyle starts trying to get information out of Angel about Cordelia. And that's when Angel drops the Cordettes thing and saying like, well, she's terrible at filing and all this other stuff, but I had hopes about the phones until today.
But there's definitely, there's this moment, and I love like the small glances with Angel in this episode where he's clocking things and then not commenting on them. So the first one is when Doyle puts his feet up on Angel's desk, and Angel just looks at the feet and looks at Doyle. Like, doesn't say anything, but there is definitively this, your feet are on my desk.
Why are they there?
But he doesn't say anything. And this actually falls throughout the episode. There are multiple times where like you see his eyes move a certain way. Like when Cordelia comes in asking for linoleum glue. His eyes are screaming.
Honestly, like, I don't know how at least a little bit of Angelus did not come out while Cordelia was staying with him. Like, she is the worst house guest ever. Terrible. And we'll get into that. But I would, if you're my friend and you come uninvited to stay with me and then pull that shit, they're going to find your body somewhere.
So Cordelia goes home and like the apartment is dank and there's like no real light. And when she turns on the light, you see the walls aren't finished. They're like spackling stuff, like it's not properly painted.
And the water's brown.
The water is brown and like splashes all over. So it's like gunky too. So like when she turns it on, it like spurts out all over her shirt.
And then there's a cockroach party. Woo!
Yeah. Oh. So I lived in Mississippi for graduate school, and there we had issues with cockroaches, and I specifically, when the apartment that was provided for me by my position, by my job, was infested with brown recluse spiders, and I'm an arachnophobe. And also brown recluse.
It's really dangerous, yeah.
Okay. And so I had a whole bunch of bad stuff happen to me right when I moved to Mississippi. The US government lost my citizenship, or like lost their records of my citizenship. And so they were threatening to deport me. And then so I was having all this drama going on. And so I had to drive to Memphis from Mississippi to try and get them to temporarily allow me to stay in the United States while they sorted out the fact that I had been a citizen since I was 16. And so I drove to Memphis, and on my way to drive to Memphis, a dog ran off the side of the road and into the driver's side door of my car. I did not hit the dog hit me and crumpled in the driver's side door of my car. And so I get back from my trip to Memphis, where I had the trip from hell, and I walk into my apartment, and there's this picture I had hanging up on the wall of me and my sister from a trip to London, and just right across my face is a spider, just on a warning, I am here for you, warning. And I about faced, and I walked over to the main office, and I was I need an exterminator right now. And they're oh, well, the exterminator doesn't come again until next week. This is the day that they do extermination, but we didn't put you on the list, so you'll have to wait until next week. And luckily the exterminator heard, and he was don't worry, I'll stay extra. And he just came over, and he just sprayed my entire apartment, which then meant that for the next week I was finding dead spider bodies in the center of the floor, because apparently when they hit the spray, they would crawl out into the opening to die, to shrivel up and die in the middle of the floor. but at least they weren't jumping out from corners at me
onto your face.
But yeah, having an infestation in your house or in your apartment, it just makes you want to leave. I was I don't care that I'm not a citizen. I don't care that my car is totaled. What I care about is the spiders. And but we would have the big cockroaches as well. And they just, they would lay down all sorts of lovely chemicals to keep them out of our apartments.
I really enjoy living in the frozen north after that story. Although we do have brown recluse spiders here. I know someone who is she didn't know one was in her bed, because they don't attack unless they feel threatened, but she didn't know one was in her bed, and while she was sleeping it bit her butt. And to make a long story shorter, basically she has a golf ball size of her butt missing now, out of her butt cheek, not her.
Yeah, I was bitten by one, and they had to put me in an antibiotic, and it was bleh. It turns out I was allergic to the antibiotic they put me on. I do not have a good experience with spiders. There is a reason I'm an arachnophobe, and it's because we've had many bad interactions with each other. Mm-hmm. But so anyways, going back to Cordelia is experiencing all these things, and she can't take it. And she's that's it, I'm calling Doyle. and she does, except
So at Doyle's apartment, he hears the phone ringing because he's just getting home from the office, and he unlocks the door and he goes to grab the phone. But then the light comes on, and it's kind of like a hello, Doyle. And there is this mean demon hanging out there. And I don't know if I got this the first time I watched it or just because, like, I know that Doyle has a gambling problem now. Like, I think it probably was fairly obvious what that demon was doing there because it's been brought up before that he often owes some people money.
Yep.
So this guy is there to collect, and he has like spikes coming out of his face. He's like a little dinosaur demon. But yeah, Doyle doesn't get to answer that phone call. Instead, he gets his hand smashed, and he hits the demon with a drawer and runs away. But while that's going on, Cordelia packs her shit and goes to Angel's. Angel's in the shower listening to some lovely classical music on a record. And he opens the door to find Cordelia, and he's just wrapped in a towel, and she just hands him her luggage and then tells him to get the stuff that's in the hallway and proceeds to inform him that she's going to be staying with him and that hopefully, like, oh, I wonder if any of these bugs stored away or stowed away in my luggage.
And the angel eyes.
Yeah. I would have just been like, so we're setting all of this on fire. And by the next day, she is completely unpacked. She also declares she's taking the bed, basically.
Yes.
All of these things, all of them, grounds for hurting your friend, I think. But he sleeps on the couch and takes it far better than clearly I would.
Like, poor put upon Angel at this point. And she just comes in and she makes this comment about, like, do you have mousse? And then she looks at him and she goes, of course you do. And then, like, but he got out of the shower. He wasn't finished bathing. He's still, like, in the middle of bathing. And she's like, you get my luggage. I'm taking over your warm shower.
Maybe there'll be some nice cold water left for you. That'll help with your atonement, right?
Yep.
That has to be what Angel's thinking this whole time, right? He's just like, I deserve this.
He's like, I wasn't jealous. This is my punishment.
Remember that family I slaughtered? Yep. This is what it'd be like having a sister. I'm a very self-obsessed sister. This is me atoning.
So we go to the next morning. She is wearing his bathrobe and and is looking at herself in the coffee pot.
Oh, the kettle. It was a tea kettle, wasn't it?
Tea kettle. Sorry, you're right. And because he doesn't have any mirrors, and Doyle walks in and sees Cordelia there and is distraught. You're laughing.
The peanut butter.
The peanut butter. Where Angel walks in, he's like, you got peanut butter in my bed. And she's like, no, I didn't. And he, like, looks at her and she goes, I'll go check. And then she's like, you got peanut butter in your bed. And he's like, I don't eat peanut butter.
Yeah, I don't eat food.
And she's like, ew, like, I don't want to hear about your weird sex stuff.
And, like, you can tell at this point, like, on her face, she's like, I don't know if I can get away with this now.
But she's just
sticking to it. Stick to your lie.
Just deny.
Yep. The vampire who didn't use his bed last night, clearly was the one who was eating peanut butter in the bed. So Doyle now thinks that Cordelia and Angel had some weird, kinky peanut butter sex last night. And so this part I don't disagree with on Doyle. Like, he's been very, like, him and Angel are friends, and he's made it very clear that he has a thing for Cordelia.
Yeah.
And him just being like, man, that's really not cool. Like, what's up? And because he also doesn't go about it in, like, a really shitty way. He's not, like, punching him or whatever. He's just like, ouch, man.
Leave some for the homely guys. I was wearing her down, and then you had to swoop in with your
overarching forehead or something.
Yeah.
An Angel's like
forehead, I think he said.
Yeah, an Angel touches forehead. Which I don't know. Like as David Boreanaz has aged, like the forehead thing has become more pronounced. But an Angel, like I didn't really notice that. Like he had a
prominent brow.
Prominent, yes. Like bony is not the right word. Obviously, when he has the vampire makeup on, it's noticeable. But as he's aged, and David Boreanaz has aged well. He's aged very, very well. But he has the forehead is more pronounced now, I would say. But yeah, so Angel explains what's going on, and also he notices the bruise on Doyle's hand.
Yep, again, the angel eyes. Mm-hmm. He had great eye work this episode. I loved his eye work.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like it said later. It's almost like he's a detective.
Yeah. Just detecting all these things.
Yeah.
So he detects the bruise on Doyle's hands, and also he hears Doyle talking to Cordelia about was someone looking for me, and she goes, "Yeah, some guy from your part of England." Mm-hmm. He said he was a cousin, and he also clocks Doyle's, nervousness about maybe don't give out my information to people, which is just in general.
Yeah.
Don't give out people's personal details unless you have their permission to do so.
And Cordelia, being from Sunnydale, should know, like she's had enough run-ins with vampires and things like that. And working at a detective agency, don't give out people's home addresses. Like don't do that. But even like you see those things, those memes, they're not really memes, but those things are shared on Facebook all the time about how if someone comes in and says that they're so-and-so's uncle, yep, when are they working today? Don't tell them. If they're so-and-so's uncle, they have a cell phone, they'll figure it out.
Yep.
So, yeah, so Doyle's upset, and later on, I don't think anything big happens other than Angel comes down at some point and is like, "Oh, there's a big guy here looking for you. I said you'd be up in a minute."
It's the linoleum.
The linoleum. That's
where, okay, so if you want to check if there's hardwood, sometimes you have to cut up a piece of the current flooring, but you do it in like a closet or like an out of the way section. She literally is sitting in the middle of the floor, going at the linoleum right in the middle of the floor.
With a butter knife. Yeah.
Because she wants to see if there's hardwood underneath or if she has to live there. She's just invited herself to live in his apartment.
Yep. And so Angel, when he comes down, says that Doyle takes off at this point. And then Angel, knows Doyle's going to do this and cuts him off at the pass, basically. He's like, "So you're going to tell me what's going on now?" And makes a deal with him that he will take care of Doyle's demon problem if he finds Cordelia a place to live. Because as that's going on, Cordelia comes out and is like, "Do you have linoleum glue? Because the linoleum's peeling up everywhere."
Surprise! And again, Angel's like, "I'll be right there." And then he looks at Doyle and he's like, "Fix my problem."
Yeah, because it's a very real problem. Given time, Angel will have nothing left in that apartment. Like everything will be broken, or
he complained because she was sticking her soaking wet towel on his leather chair.
Yep. And she was just like, eh. So, the Doyle does start taking Cordelia around to look at places.
But they're looking in the classified section first.
Yes, because she doesn't want him calling his guy.
Yep.
And she doesn't even know about the bookies.
I know. but she has a certain price range. And also this is California. So
LA specifically.
the places that she's looking at are terrible because that's all she can afford. And we've got,
The cult?
the cult, where the chanting starts at 4 a.m. and then they have the lesson with the great leader at 5,
and you get to do your bodily functions in a room full of other people. Woo!
So Zillow Gone Wild has been one of my pandemic loves. And I send them to Sabrina, Sabrina sends them to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we recently saw one where there was just a toilet in the front room in direct view of the front door. Like you walk in the front door and you look to your left and there's the toilet. Like there's no barrier, it's just there.
It's just there. I mean, even if you're living by yourself, if you're ever going to have company or a gardener or a mail person deliver your mail, you might want some sort of door or a wall. Even one of those like partitions that like fold, something.
Yep.
Not for your comfort, then for others.
And so then, and then they go to the next one, and there's this super creepy guy who is uncredited, listed as disgusting man. Played by Lyle Carouse, who is not super, not super gross in the other things he's done. He's the bartender in, or one of the bartenders in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Oh.
So he's played some normalish roles, but
not that day.
Disgusting man, and he's like touching his stomach and like not just touch. He's like rubbing himself as he's like, I live right across the hallway. And I'm the only other living person who has a key to get into your apartment. Like, the way he says it is so lecherous and like...
It's quite dangerous how he says it, because first he makes sure that she would be living there by herself.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. Like, so I also like to listen to Let's Not Meet, which is a podcast about, really creepy things that happen. And there's so many where like a maintenance person or like a building, whatever, in an apartment building will have keys to an apartment. And like, they're just letting themselves, like people waking up with like this person standing over them and stuff like that. Well, lots of things with people living in walls and attics too. So check your cross spaces.
Because my job when I worked in universities was running residence halls, I always had an apartment as part of my job. And, there's master keys for the entire building because it's a residence hall and maintenance would have it. But I always, from the very beginning, would deadbolt my door. Yeah. Like, if I'm in the apartment, that door was deadbolted because I don't want anyone just walking in. That's my naked time.
You just put that on your door. This is my naked time. Go away.
I actually had a hook with my bathrobe right next to the door because,
this is a very Jasmine thing, yes.
2 a.m. and be like, hey, there's a blah, blah, blah. So I had to have my bathrobe so I could deal with students at 2 a.m.
I can so picture all of that. You having to deal with drunk students while like naked with just a bathrobe on.
Yep. I'll tell you about the time my entire building flooded 2 stories one day. I got a call and one of my RAs is like, could you come out here please? And it's like 1 a.m. I'm like, is it an emergency? I'm not on duty. And he's like, you really need to come out here. And so like, I'm wearing like shorts and a t-shirt and a bathrobe. And I step out into the hallway and I can hear what sounds like a waterfall, and it's because the water main for the building had burst into one of the rooms and was just pumping water into the room. There was like 3 feet already. And it was like, oh, we've got a swimming pool now. Like,
oh my, wow. I can't believe you just loosened that memory in my head. When I was a freshman in college, someone in the most of the dorms at my college were in historic buildings, but one of them wasn't. It was like your traditional cinder block mess. And someone took and stacked their beds on the one side and got an inflatable pool and filled it. Well, you get enough drunk college freshmen in there, they popped the pool and just flooded the place. I haven't thought about that in like a decade.
well, now this reminds me of my time at Cornell.
I think I know Rocky Horror. Is that where this is going?
It's kind it wasn't my hall, but I used to participate with a lot of the theater kids. It was called Risley Residential College, and a lot of the theater and artsy students lived in this hall. And in the winter, and it's cold in upstate New York, they would take a kiddie pool and they would fill it with hot water, and they would just have a clothing's optional kiddie pool in the backyard of this residence hall. And the maintenance people kept wondering why there were these random like circles of like not snow in the yard.
Now I'm sure they would just get an inflatable hot tub.
Yep. This is pre-inflatable hot tub times. This is running a
struggle was real.
From the hot water like faucet of the laundry room out.
I wonder if the people who invented the inflatable hot tub is someone who went to Cornell and was just like, this is bullshit. Like, future generations shouldn't have to suffer how I did. But
our podcast about Room with a View has turned into terrible housing stories by Sabrina and Jasmine.
Yeah, I can relate to what happens at the end of this with my college living situation.
You had a poltergeist?
Yeah. Yeah. Or at least things, I don't really believe in ghosts, but there are things that happen there that are not explainable. But I will get to that.
Eventually Cordelia gives in and says, you have a guy. And Doyle takes her to this place, and it is pretty. It's a pretty apartment, and it's fully furnished, and it's furnished nicely.
It's a large apartment.
It's large. And there's a kitchen room and a dining room area and like a living, like, it's nice.
And a fireplace.
And Cordelia says, how can I afford this? What's the catch? And they said, oh, the catch is that, they broke their lease early.
And this isn't even on the market yet. I don't know how you found out about it.
Mm-hmm. No. So, and so she's like, yes, I will take it. It's my lucky day. And she says, I used to have this sort of thing. And the realtor says, it's your lucky day. And Cordelia says, I used to have those too. Like, and it's a little sad because she does feel like she's hit a pretty bad down patch.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then Angel is beating up Griff in Doyle's apartment.
The dinosaur demon.
Yep. Introducing himself. He's like, smack, hi, I'm Angel. What's your name? Guy doesn't respond. Smack, hi, I'm Angel. What's your name? And basically says, let Doyle live. I'll get him to pay you your money. Take back the message to your boss. And Doyle's like, you want me to pay? Like, I don't have money. And Angel's like, you better pay. Like,
yeah, Angel says in no uncertain terms, like, these people were going to kill you. They weren't even looking for the money. They just wanted you dead. Yeah. And at that point, Doyle's like, thank you. You saved my life. Which Doyle isn't a bad friend, right? He's especially like he has not known Angel or Cordelia that long, but like he's not a bad friend. Like he does admit when he's wrong, which is a very nice adulty thing. But he has some terrible habits and he's not necessarily not creepy.
Yeah.
But so then we have Cordelia sleeping in her bed, and then the radio pops on to like this older station, and her drawers are opening up, and like an invisible thing is like pulling up her clothes. Okay. And then Cordelia wakes up because of everything that's going on, and she's hell-bent on not giving up this apartment, and she keeps yelling like, I'm not scared, I'm from Sunnydale, as like the bed's levitating, and that's how she stays until morning.
When the bed falls to the ground finally.
Yeah. Which I have a question. So do you think that furniture was all the old woman's or just the last tenants?
I think just the last tenants.
Okay.
Like, I think there's been a slow accumulation of tenants moving in and being like, fuck this shit, and moving out. Also, it looks like if it is a guy or a couple, they were okay living in the apartment, but a single young woman was being attacked. Like, specifically this old lady had problems with the young woman.
Yes. And lets Cordelia know in no uncertain terms she wants her gone. And Cordelia's like, I'm not giving this up. So she doesn't go right into, like, she doesn't show up for work. I don't know if they're off that day because Angel and Doyle show up at her door with a little cactus with a housewarming gift in the daylight. I know it's a necessary thing that they're doing with Angel, but at the same time that they're doing this, like how they're handling Spike on Buffy drives me bonkers. Because the reason James Marsters has said, like, the reason he was supposed to like take Cordelia's spot with being like snarky, but he said they couldn't really do that because of the daylight and you'd always have like a smoking blanket on him. They're doing it with Angel. Doing it with Angel. So that really just annoys me because it's not like they're completely different people working on these shows.
I wonder if Angel has like a sunproof black umbrella that like is just like walking around.
Like a cartoon. He looks like someone from the Addams Family.
Like we've seen that Wolfram and Hart has like special glass.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't allow sunlight without allowing in,
the UV rays or whatever.
Vampire stuff. So but I do agree with you because I do think, although I do appreciate Spike in his flaming blanket.
Yeah. It's just weird that it's handled so differently on.
Angel walks right in and Cordelia's like, how'd you do that? And he said, you said yesterday, whenever you get an apartment, I was totally invited. And she's like, I didn't know it worked that way.
Why are the rules changing? And clearly it's not that they're changing, it's that it's always been that way. So as Doyle and Angel are there because they want to look around like the apartment, see what she's done, she's trying to get them out because she's fighting with this ghost. And she's trying to keep them from noticing like there's scissors flying, and she grabs it and she's shoving it into a drawer, and there's like odd things like that going on. And finally they notice when one of Cordelia's trophies tries to behead Doyle. And she tries to lie her way through that, and they were like, no.
And then they see the word die in blood written behind her, and she's like, it could be diet, just friendly, judgmental, but
and
powerful.
And as they're dragging her out of the apartment, saying like, we need to research this, what do we hear? Like Cordelia yells, "I'll die before I give up this on repeat." Which don't say that to the ghost. Don't say that. They clearly have like powers and very angry powers.
Yep. And she did say that the apartment is rent controlled, and that makes it important for her to not move out of.
Yeah. And so she's carried out, and Cordelia, when she first saw the apartment, said she wants to knock down this one wall. If you're renting a place, you don't get to just knock down a wall.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't. So
but it's Cordelia.
It's Cordelia, yeah. But anyone who's planning on renting a place, don't just knock down a wall. And so they're going into research mode for trying to figure out like who exactly it is that's haunting this place, because that'll give them a lot of answers. They're hoping. So looking into any deaths at this place or murders would be ideal. And thankfully, Angel has that lovely contact, Kate, at the police station. But while they're doing all of the research, they've split up, and Cordelia is by herself at the office.
Doyle has gone to get bile and all the things necessary for an exorcism. And Angel has gone to go find out who they're exorcising, basically, or what the cause of the need for the exorcism is. Because dying of a heart attack, as they believe Maud Pearson has, she was the first owner, is not the violent death that usually causes a poltergeist.
Yes.
And so Cordelia is alone in the office, just waiting for them to get back.
Yeah, and a call comes in. This time she answers. Well, because the machine does pick up, and it's Angel, and thankfully she let the machine get it. And saying that Angel's saying like, meet me at the apartment right now, basically. And she's like, okay, I'm on my way. But that's not Angel that called.
Yep. It's Maud.
It's Maud. Yep.
So before this happens, Angel asks her why the apartment is so important to her. And Cordelia says it would mean that she's forgiven. That, she felt like she was being punished for the way that she treated others in high school. And that, this was the universe kind of getting back at her. But if she could have the apartment, the nice thing, maybe it would mean that she was achieving atonement. And, Angel's like, are you trying to atone? And she's like, well, you had that nice mansion. But I do think that sometimes when you're going through a really rough period of time, you start questioning, do I deserve this? Like, do I deserve this shitty behavior? Do I deserve this shitty luck? All these bad things happening to me. Is it because of me? And I do think that Cordelia has a lot of learning to do and growing up and developing, but I don't think the shittiness of her apartment is deserved.
No one deserves to live in the place that she was living. And
no one deserves cockroaches.
And brown gunky water. Like a cockroach or two, that could happen depending on where you're living.
Does Flint, Michigan have clean water yet?
No. Flint, Michigan does not. That would have implied that government officials gave a shit about the people living in this country. No, they do not have clean water. There are various other places. There was just a study that came out that Pennsylvania's water supply, there's so much plastic in it. It's like drinking a credit card a week.
Ew.
Yep.
Also concerning.
Yes. I'm very happy. I'm on a well system, so that doesn't exactly affect me. Other things like can contaminate my water, obviously. But not that. I'm not drinking credit cards. Yep.
Yeah, I've been doing the adulting thing this week about we should get a new water heater and we should do this. And expensive homeownership stuff. But I was like, maybe we should get a full like water filtration system for the house as we're, switching over so that it's actually safe to drink things from the taps. And
yeah, I have a water filtration because I have to because of the well.
yeah.
And it's always so sad to me that you like can't just drink water out of a sink.
Yeah.
Or, out of a hose if you're a child and that's your thing.
And I feel like there was a time when you could, but now no. Anyways, so we've got Angel talking to Kate, and she's making the comment about how he's, not quite a detective, even though he says he's a detective. And she's like, where's your license? But she is able to find out information that, there was some interesting causes for concern regarding Maud's son, Dennis. There was lots of arguing going on regarding Dennis's girlfriend / fiance. The mother did not approve, and that, she died the same day that Dennis skipped town.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go, Angel calls and finds Doyle instead, Doyle who has his bile and stuff. And he's like, where's Cordelia? And then he checks the message. He sees that Cordelia has been lured back to the apartment. So they come together as big, strong men to swoop in and save the day.
I don't think Doyle considers himself a big, strong man by any. I think he's very confident in his I'm a sidekick role.
Wondering if they have
watch that coat in the wind.
Wondering if they have enough bile for the exorcism.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cordelia has met up with Maud, and Maud is just deriding her and bringing her down and just, mentally abusing her as well as physically abusing her.
One of the things that Angel found out when talking to Kate, he was like, check and see if there were suicides. And it was either 3 or 4. I think it was 4 suicides in the apartment, all single women.
Yeah.
And that's when he had called the office, basically. So Angel knows that she's in serious danger now. And what this ghost is trying to do is convince Cordelia not even convince her to kill herself, because she drops a chandelier as she's absolutely berating Cordelia, and wraps the wire around her throat and starts to hang her.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a really that's a really disturbing visual that you wind up with.
Yeah. And then the fact that she does hang her,
mm-hmm.
but luckily Angel and Doyle show up just in time to pull her body down before she dies.
Yeah, because she has lost consciousness.
Yeah. So with hanging, and there are 3 ways that you can die via hanging. 1 is snapping your neck. 2 is basically suffocating or not being able to cutting off your airway. And 3 is cutting off the blood supply to your brain. Mm-hmm. So obviously, because of the way she was hung, she didn't snap down, so it didn't break her neck. I don't believe it cut off the blood supply. I believe it was air. She didn't have air. Mm-hmm. So she thankfully you can go several minutes without air before you die. So they pull her down and she's okay.
Yeah. Although really freaking scared.
Yes.
Like, she's not mentally okay.
And they try to do the exorcism, but Cordelia has just broken down completely, and she's sobbing, and she's saying that she can't, and that, she's just too weak. She can't handle it. She can't fight back. All while Maud, and I don't know if Angel can see Maud, but Maud's like not whispering, she's yelling. She's yelling in Cordelia's ear. That she's useless. And so they're like, okay, we have to leave, except they open up the door and there's Dinosaur Demon Griff.
Yeah.
There for Doyle. With his friends. And Angel was like, you said you'd let Doyle live if he paid. And the demon's like, I lied. here to kill. And Maud is pissed, and they're like, it's just a ghost, whatever. And Maud's like, no, not whatever. Here come knives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the bad guys runs away. He looks human. The other demon guy gets some knives in the chest, and then Angel eventually breaks the other guy's neck. The original, what is his name? Dinosaur face?
Griff.
Griff lasts a little bit longer, but Angel does break his neck. And Maud gets really pissed because they shoot, one of the guys takes and shoots her fireplace and breaks one of these, it looks like a tile.
Yep.
Yeah, like, and it busts. And there's no way you're replacing that. There's none. Like, this is clearly from like the 50s or something.
Mm-hmm. She's pissed that he broke it.
Yeah. And while all the fighting is going on, she like sucks Cordelia through the apartment into the bedroom and closes the door and is berating her again. And Cordelia keeps saying, like, I don't want anything to do with your son, whoever the hell he is, because that's what she's stuck on. And thankfully, like, she was able to convey that to Angel as well. Well, not thankfully, because Angel doesn't do anything with that knowledge. But as Maud's berating her, Cordelia is like curled up on the floor and crying until Maud calls her like a stupid bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cordelia like completely changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like, that scene just plays a little weird to me now. Like that she had such like a switch thrown in that moment. But anyway, she does, and she gets up and she's like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm really mean. And she starts sassing the crap out of Maud, and Maud's like, no, hang yourself with the bed sheets, lady, what are you doing? And she tells her to get the hell out of her apartment, and Maud like goes like, Pew!
Also, okay, so here's the thing. First of all, Doyle and Angel had set up the exorcism where the center, which is supposed to be Cordelia, is supposed to fight back to cast her out.
Yeah.
So they've already set up the spell to cast Maud out as long as Cordelia gets up the strength to do the casting.
Yeah.
I do agree with you, but I think what happened is that Maud is calling her trash, Maud is calling her poor, and these are the self-doubts that Cordelia was currently having. But when Maud calls her a bitch, she's like, okay, well, that's not a self-doubt thing for me. That was something I took pride in. Mm-hmm. And so that was her, like, reclaiming her, you know what? I am a bitch. I have been a bitch, and I don't view that as a weakness with all those other things you were calling me that I feel are my weaknesses and flaws. This is not my weakness. This is my strength. And I feel, so I see what you're saying, where it's like, it comes weird for you, but I also see where the writer was saying, like, this is her reclaiming part of her core self.
I understand. I think they ran out of time in the episode to do that moment justice. It just doesn't hit right for me. Like, I mean, also, I have a master's in women's studies, and I've done so much study on like third wave feminism. And when this was written, I was like, yeah, this is clearly a sign of the time. Because there was a real push for reclaiming like these words, and it wasn't necessarily always done correctly. Like, it was really weird because these same people who were like, let's reclaim the word, yeah, bitch, woohoo, like, talking about all they were still using the word then to bring down other women, like, oh, she's such a bitch. You can't have it both ways. Like, if you want to reclaim a word, you have to not use it to shame other women.
Yeah.
So that's my rant.
So then Dennis at this point possesses Cordelia briefly. Mm-hmm. Now that Maud has been weakened, he is able to rise up a little bit and possesses Cordelia. Cordelia smashes open the wall, revealing his body, and we get this flashback of what actually happened with Maud and her son Dennis where he was going to leave her to be with his, fiance or girl. And so she ties him up and bricks him into the wall. Like, was it the Count de Monte Cristo? What is the one that, or the Cask de...
Oh, are you thinking about the Edgar Allan Poe thing?
Yep.
Yeah, Cast of Amontillado? Something like that. Yeah, and like you can hear Dennis saying like, I can't breathe, and like he's pleading with his mother, and she keeps going on saying like I can't imagine why he wanted to get away from this woman.
You're making me do this. Look what you are making me do. Oh my God, she's so abusive.
So abusive. It's amazing he's not a serial killer, honestly.
She's like, I'm doing this for you. This is for your sake.
Murdering you.
Yep, murdering you for your sake.
And the fact that like his fiance never like says that he's missing or anything, I kind of think that she offed the fiance too. My personal theory.
I could see that. Kills a fiance, traps her son in the wall, patches in the wall, and then puts on her pearl earrings and her pearl necklace to hang up the painting, and then she has the heart attack. Like, but
that's justice right there.
Well, at that point, he was probably dead by the time she finished spackling.
Yeah.
Like, if he couldn't breathe, he might have stayed alive for a little bit longer, but her body wasn't found for 3 weeks. So, like, he was definitely dead by then.
Yeah, 100%. So, that is such an awful way to die. Like, I can't even imagine, like, someone who's supposed to love you is murdering you. Slowly at that. Like, he had a lot of time to process everything that was going on.
Yeah.
So, the skeleton is there after, Cordelia hits the wall with the lamp, and he takes care of that. I kind of want, like, what do they do with this skeleton?
I don't know.
Like, is it a Halloween decoration now? Like,
but Dennis's spirit basically flies through the mother and destroys the mother's poltergeist. And so then, okay, that's done. We see Angel installing a deadbolt, or see Angel watching Doyle installing a deadbolt in his apartment. And he says at some point Doyle's going to have to talk about his past, and Doyle kind of, poo-poos him, like, oh yeah, it's a great tale, I'll tell you someday. And Angel's like, no, really, like, we should have this conversation at some point. And then we see Cordelia settling into her new apartment, like, properly now. And she's finally returning Aura's call. And she says that she has a roommate that she never sees. And it's Dennis, who Ghost Dennis is so sweet.
I love Ghost Dennis. He's one of my favorite characters. Like him pulling her soda.
They call him Phantom Dennis.
Yeah.
And so like he moves her soda and she's like, Dennis, put that back. And he like puts it back. And he turns on the TV and she's like, no, I'm on the phone. And he's like, but sure, like while she's off during the day, Phantom Dennis is like, great, I can watch television now.
Yeah, because like also not only had he been murdered very young by his mother, but then he was stuck with her shitty spirit for forever, watching her torture all these other women. So now he's like, great, like she's not forcing me out of here. My mother's gone and life is grand. Afterlife is grand.
I feel like, I feel like if I were a ghost now, I would definitely try to choose like a person to live in my house who liked Netflix. Like just someone who binge watches, and I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'm like sitting on the lampshade as a ghost, just watching Netflix all day long, being like, okay, cool, this is life now. Like,
and that'd be so, you don't have to worry then like about missing the next season. You're not gonna die.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I love Phantom Dennis. He is a favorite character for sure. So my story from college. So my college apartment, I lived there for 2 years, and like some weird stuff was happening. There were 2 floors to my apartment. We were on the 2nd and 3rd floor. I was the only one that had a bedroom downstairs. And like there were a lot of weird things about our apartment. Like on the 3rd floor, the wall didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. So my roommate Kate wound up with a bat in her room the one time, for example. Her bedroom window also wasn't finished. They just put a tarp over it. And the one time she woke up with snow on her. Shit like that. But the rent was so cheap. And I had a huge room. Didn't bother me. And we had a bar in our apartment. But so I was the only one home out of my roommates. There were 4 of us who lived there. Everybody else was hadn't come back yet from winter break. And I had some friends over. We were having there were only like 4. There were 4 of us. And all of a sudden I started hearing in the kitchen the kettle going off, whistling. And I came and I was like, no one's been in here, and the back door was locked. So I was like, whoever decided they wanted tea or water's done. And they're all looking at me like I have 5 heads. And it was a gas stove at that. So like you had to push in and turn. Like if you just turned it, we would all just die from the gas leak.
Yes.
So that was a very bizarre thing. There's also, I was again the only one home. I wasn't even home. I was just running back to the apartment to grab something off of my roommate's dresser because I just got my tattoo and she had cream that she was giving to me. And I ran upstairs to get it while everyone was over at our friend's place. And I didn't bother turning on the light. And I went in and I'm grabbing the cream and I just hear, "Hi, Sabrina." And I was scared out of my, because I thought I was about to be murdered. And so I took off and I ran back to my friend's place, told them what happened. There was nobody in the apartment. There was no signs that anybody was in the apartment. Our apartment had been locked when I got there.
That's creepy.
Yeah. And then also from my room, you could hear someone pacing the hallway. And I wasn't the only one hearing this. Like my one roommate heard this all the time as well. Outside her door, it sounded like someone was pacing. And then my roommate Kate came, the one that had the bat in her room the one time. Her mirror it hadn't fallen off the door. It was one with hooks on it, and it looked like someone had taken and lifted it off of the door and placed it down.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So we didn't have an attic or anything like that. There was nowhere that someone really could have hidden. Like there was no crawl space. All these weird things and I have no explanation for it. So if someone ever asked me like, do you believe in ghosts? I'm like, not really, but I've had these experiences that I can't explain. And honestly, I'd prefer at this point to think it was a ghost versus some like creep living somewhere in the apartment.
Yeah.
So those are my creepy ass stories. Feel free to share yours in the comments.
Yes, please do. I love to hear other people's creepy or terrible rooming situations or terrible apartment horror stories.
Yes.
So next week we are back in Sunnydale, back in the Hellmouth with Wild at Heart, which is a heartbreaking episode. So.
Willow. Our beautiful Willow.
But thank you for just jostling with me today.
Oh, yes. And we will catch you next week in Sunnydale.